good pitching, timely hitting. Hey, we got a victory. The 7-game losing streak is finally over, and we're going to celebrate together. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You are a part of the 80,000 downloads in the last month and over 100,000 listeners and viewers. Listen, the Angels might suck right now, but you don't suck. So we really appreciate you. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. Thank you for the 5 stars. We feel very loved. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter our promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat with any order. They're pretty cool. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you.
Hey, thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's our second season here with you at Locked On Angels, and we're grateful to be talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday. You can count on us to be there for you every single weekday. Hey, Locked On Everydayers, join us every day this week. We're recapping all the games against these Giants, the ones we beat in 0-2, by the way. Still going to wear that proudly.
Yep.
On today's show, why have the Halos struggled so much since the trade deadline? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to share a little bit of hope with you. But, Mike, we need to recap last night's game against the Giants. It was game 2. Now, I'm going to be nice and quiet because I don't want anyone to accuse me of celebrating too hard as we recap the game. I'm going to make sure that I don't be exuberant or over the top. And, Mike, the Angels won 7-5 last night. Isn't that wonderful?
You know, John, when we get in trouble, it's always because of you.
I
just
know.
want you to know it's always because of you.
Last time somebody said you guys celebrated too hard against the Braves, and I said we just talked about the game.
It's always John, friends. It's always John. It's been John
always
in our
me.
house when we were growing up. It's always actually it's Jeff first, and then
Yes,
John,
and then me.
That's another brother John or brother Jeff. So the Angels did win 7-5. They got off to a great start. They went up 4-0 in the first inning. John, we talked about giving Giolito a lead when he started in his last start, and how that actually stop it. And actually, I think that really helps him. Ohtani got an RBI, Moose got an RBI, Renfroe had a double and 2 RBIs. And I think it actually benefited Giolito in the game. I want to talk about first Brandon Drury, who has really been great since coming off the IL. He hit his 5th home run. And when he hit his 15th home run in the 5th. And when he hit it, it was 5-3. Angels were up. Let's talk about Giolito for just a moment, Johnny. 101 pitches, 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 7 Ks. Mm-hmm. He had 1 bad inning. It was the top of the 3rd. That's where he gave up all of those runs. But he had a really solid outing. And what I liked about this outing is that he looked like a different pitcher. And he said something to Carlin Baith before the game that he made an adjustment during his bullpen sessions. And Matty Theis actually was somebody that pointed it out to him. So high five, Matty Theis.
Yeah.
But he said, I made an adjustment. He didn't get into specifics as to what it was, but he just looked really confident on the mound. And he was really excited to make this adjustment and implement this. And he looked like a different pitcher and looked like the guy that we were hoping he would be, right?
Yeah, it looked like he was going after batters. He looked a lot more confident up there. It's funny to me that Matt Theis is the one who pointed it out, because we just got done talking about Matt Wise yesterday and what he even does. And maybe there was a conversation there. We don't know, because he wasn't allowed to talk to Sam Blum.
Nobody can talk to anybody.
Yeah, nobody can talk to anyone. Matt Theis pointing that out, I think, is great, because who knows you better than your catcher? And so that was a great observation from him. Mike, there's a couple things that made me laugh. And first of all, it's how great has Rengifo been in the leadoff spot,
right?
Filling in there.
As much as he drives us nuts, he can come through in moments, and it's hard to stay mad at him, right? Because he just has really been great.
He got it started in the first with that double, and it allowed Shohei to drive him in and pick up that RBI. And then, the Angels just piled on from there. And that's the thing. I guess Rengifo is like 2 extremes, right? When he's good, he's really good. And when he's bad, he's super frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the story of Rengifo. So props to him for getting it going last night. Now, we were texting back and forth, and I was shocked at like the situational hitting that was happening in this one. Now, I understand, they were up 5-3 and that was after Drury's solo shot. And then suddenly it became 6-5 when Dominic Leone gave up the 2-run home run in the 8th. And the Angels got it back with a Thaiss sacrifice fly in the 8th. And they're moving guys over, they're putting balls in play. I texted you and I said, they had 2 sacrifice flies. I can't remember the last time they had sacrifice flies.
Yeah.
And then Wayne Randazzo on the broadcasts, he says, the Angels have 36 sacrifice flies this year, tied for most in the American League.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, well, I'm stupid. I haven't been paying attention. But it was shocking to me because for as much as we have been so frustrated with them with runners in scoring position, they really did a good job last night of putting it all together and moving guys around and putting balls in play, all the things that you do to help you score runs and get add-on runs. Because like I guess it's just the mentality of we're going to get all our runs in bunches. And they certainly did that in the first, but then what were the runs that actually mattered at the end of the game? The 2 sacrifice flies that put them up 7-5 and allowed them to have a little bit of a leeway there. Now, the big question was what's going to happen in the 9th inning, because Carlos Estevez, obviously, he pitched on Sunday. He blew the save on Monday. So you had Aaron Loup come out for the 7th, and then the 8th inning, Loup faced the first batter, but he walked him. And so that was when Dominic Leone came in, and that's when the 2-run home run happened. He was able to get out of the 8th, came back out for the 9th. What'd you think about that?
I like that move because he's been good for us, and I like riding the hot hand. And we don't have Reynaldo Lopez because he's on the bereavement list, and a lot of the other pitchers were used up. I know Soriano possibly could be somebody they could have brought in.
Well, that's what I liked, is that Leone was out there again, and Soriano was warming up in the bullpen.
Yes,
right behind him.
Yeah,
we don't see that enough, to be honest with you.
Right,
and I understand that because Leone pitched the 8th. He didn't have the 3-batter minimum rule anymore. And that seems to be a rule a lot of people forget. You can't change pitchers until you've faced 3 batters and had an outcome, an out hit or a walk, that sort of thing.
Or get out of an inning, yeah.
Or get out of the inning first, right?
Yeah.
So all that to say, I really like the fact that Soriano was warming up behind him as, the escape pod, so to speak, the eject button. I think that's they needed to be doing this all along, especially when you have relievers struggling. I liked putting Leone in there just because he's the hardest thrower they have at that point of the game, right? Other than Estevez. And so you saw him get a lot of swings and misses for strikeouts on the fastball and challenge guys and things like that. I was really impressed. Matt Thaiss went out there, had a word with him, and they were able to put together that save in the 9th. So I was really happy with the results there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do today and what they do moving forward. I don't think Estevez has lost the closer position, but I do think that they have to pay really close attention to it. Lopez comes back on Friday, and so in between that time, I think they have to really pay attention to it. I would not be surprised if we saw Soriano come in for a save opportunity in today's game and maybe against Houston as well in the next game. I also would not be surprised if they bring in Estevez and then have Soriano warming up or somebody warming up in the bullpen. I don't think that you bail on Estevez yet, but I do think that you have to have some sort of safety net behind him. And Johnny, that would actually be a really great move because it's an adjustment. And that's what the Angels just can't seem to do. You mentioned situational hitting with runners in scoring position. They've been really, really terrible. But the reason why they were good last night, Johnny, is because they were situationally hitting, like they were able to move runners over, right? Like they were able to get sacrifice flies. And I think it is that mentality of bunches. But what we saw last night was a team that actually was approaching it a bit differently and they were coaching a bit differently. I just hope that they don't lose that, because I think sometimes you can go back to habits. You can go back to what your rhythm or your routine is. And so I think that they need to continue to do that because they have a chance. We've talked about they need to take 2 or 3 in these next series to really get back into the race. So they have a chance against the Giants with Ohtani on the mound, which is fantastic. But Phil's got to continue to manage a bit differently, and they have to look at how they're approaching hitting a bit differently with the sacrifice flies and moving runners over, because they've seen success when it's happened. And that's why good teams are good teams, because they take advantage of those situational moments.
Absolutely. Hey, the Angels are back at it tonight against the Giants, 6:38 Pacific time. You mentioned it. Shohei Ohtani will be on the mound. It'll be a great matchup. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. And coming up on Locked On Angels, why have the Halos struggled so much since the trade deadline? Well, we got a theory, and we're going to share that with you coming right up.
Today's show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Johnny, I got a delivery from Bird Dogs recently. I got pants and I got shorts and I got a hat. And I know that you got a delivery as well. Did you get a hat?
You mean this hat right here? Let's go.
Yeah, it's a fantastic little hat. And the clothing is so good. We've talked about Bird Dogs on this show a few times, but what I like about Bird Dogs is that you don't have to fit into it. You can actually have it fit to you. I went to the doctor on Friday, Johnny. Last Friday, I had to get a new doctor. Don't normally go. And when I showed up, that looks good. When I showed up, they, got to weigh you and all of that stuff. And listeners and viewers don't know, but since high school, I've been 185 to 195. Like I've just kind of been in between that. Went to the doctor. They weighed me. I was 205, John. So I came home and said, hey, honey, I'm fat. But what I like about Bird Dogs is that you don't look fat in those things and they fit you. You don't have to fit into them. They make you look lean and mean. They're comfortable. You can wear them anywhere. They're actually really nice for like if you have to dress up a bit or if you're just going to go out and play and have fun with the family. So I would encourage you to check out birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. You can get yourself a pair of pants and shorts. And when you go there, enter our promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat that John just modeled for us on the YouTube side. If you're listening on the audio side, you got to come over to YouTube. He's showing it right now. Looks fantastic. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB, or go to their website and enter our promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs. We promise you.
I haven't been 205 or I haven't been 185 since high school. Get out of here. You're 6'3", you're tall. I got the short jeans. Get out of here. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers. Hey, make sure you get your questions in for Fan Mail Friday coming up on Friday. We want to get your questions in before then so that we can address them on the show. Don't forget, Angels are back at it tonight, 6:38 Pacific time. Catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
John, there are a lot of reasons that we could point out why the Angels have struggled since the trade deadline. They went all in.
We begin.
Right. They went all in. They got all these great players. They got some good hitters. They got some good pitchers. And then they went 0-7. Finally got a win last night. We have a theory, okay? It's in the air. It's just kind of in the air, but it's a theory.
Aliens.
Yes. Johnny, I think the answer to why the Angels have struggled is found in what the Rays are actually doing. Let me explain, and then I'd love to get your thoughts. Tyler Glasnow was on the Foul Territory pod, friend of the pod, our friends over there, and he was talking about the success of the Rays and why they develop guys the way that they do. He shared two things. First thing he said is that the Rays formula is getting a guy who has unbelievable stuff, but has struggled with strategy. So, for example, the strategy might be, hey, throw up and away or throw down and in the zone, but it just hasn't worked for them because they're aiming. They're actually not using their stuff to its full benefit. They're aiming in the strike zone. So what the Rays do is they actually tell the catcher to set up down the middle of the zone, and then they challenge the pitcher to make their stuff as nasty as possible. And so what they found is that aiming down the middle of the zone actually helps them to get ahead and throw strikes, because if they're throwing good pitches, it's not going to go down the middle of the zone. It's actually going to fall off or move up, or it's going to go out, down in the way, or low and in, something like that. So what Tyler said was that this actually grows your confidence in your stuff, because you start to see like, hey, I'm a really good pitcher. And then he also talked about like cultural stuff. He said with the Rays, there's no rules, and he doesn't mean like there's no boundaries, but what he said was there's no added pressure when you come up to the Rays or get traded to the Rays or sign with the Rays, where you have to like tip the cap to an Aaron Judge or a Mike Trout. You just show up and do what you were hired essentially to do.
Yeah.
The only rule is don't be a jerk. He used a different word, but this is a G-rated show. So he said, don't be a jerk.
Family show.
Right. He said, do what you can do and do it the best. Now, the reason why I think that this might be a good theory is because the Angels have actually had this strategy that we've heard about, not necessarily from Matt Weiss because he can't talk to anybody, but we've heard about, and we saw it kind of spring its ugly head in spring training when Carlos Estevez was really struggling. They were trying to get him to throw his fastball high up in the zone. But the problem with that, and I think the reason why the Angels have been struggling since the trade deadline with these new guys, is I think that they're trying to get these guys to fit into their strategy rather than finding what they do well and helping them to become better. And quite honestly, I don't know why they would do that. I don't understand. As a leader in the organization that I'm a part of outside of this pod, I want people that come in that are really good, and I want them to flex on where they're really good. I don't want them to actually fit into any sort of mold.
Sure.
Yes, we have a culture. Yes, we have a way forward. Yes, we have a vision, but I want them to actually fit in. We hired them because I think that they're going to make us better.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me to have somebody come in and then have Matt Weiss tell them, hey, try this, instead of going, what are you good at? And let's figure out how we can do that well. That's my theory. What do you think about it?
I think I agree with what Tyler Glasnow had to say. I think that's an excellent philosophy, is find out what dudes are good at and let them do their thing. Now, I will say that I think you're half right about the Estevez thing, because on one hand, we have heard that the Angels want to emphasize something and focus less on something. But that actually, to me, from what I remember, that came from Aaron Loop when he was talking about his struggles and how the focus was on breaking stuff and getting swings and misses. Aaron Loop's sinker is not built to get swings and misses. It's meant to induce weak contact. And the reason why he struggled so much in the beginning of the season was that the contact was either really good contact or the bad contact was getting really lucky. And he was getting what we like to call BABIP'd to death because the batting average on balls in play, they were finding bloops and he was getting dinky dude and stuff. So it was just a bad combination. Fortunately, when he went on the IL, he realized, hey, I could trim down a bit and be a little bit more athletic. And since he's come back, he's done fairly well, a lot better than what he was doing at the beginning of the season. Now, I will say with Carlos Estevez, and we talked about this, and I went and looked at his StatCast, his Baseball Savant page, and the Angels did identify something in him that said, hey, you know what? When Esty throws his fastball at the top of the zone, he gets a ton of swings and misses. And so I think you're right in the sense that, yes, they do have a philosophy and they're trying to get guys to fit this mold. And I think you see that with Reed Detmers and Patrick Sandoval, where they're getting to these 3-2 counts because they're trying to, break a pitch and get a guy to swing and miss. When it's like, just go after the guy and throw your best slider, throw your best changeup at him because you have the stuff. Now, I will say with Esty, identifying what he does well and hitting that top of the zone with the fastball, I think that's where his success has come from this season. And I also think it helped him working that out in spring training to practice hitting the top of the zone. And that's why he struggled in spring training, because it was practice. He was finding that. And if you notice, Mike, a lot of what he threw that got crushed, like by Marlowe on Thursday, it was a fastball up in the zone, but it wasn't at the top of the zone. It was right below the top edge of the strike zone. It was,
and the guy just swung and missed at a pitch that was above the strike zone. And so I can understand why he's going back there. That makes sense.
And he went back there, and so for him to say, I know he came out and said that, he needs to aim better, he needs to throw better, and I think he's right. At the end of the day, I think his stuff is still good, and when he hits the right spot, I think he's still got it. I just think that he's struggling to put the ball where he wants to put it right now. And maybe it has everything to do with where is he aiming it? Where's the glove of the catcher behind the dish, right? I don't know. Maybe there needs to be a conversation with Matt Weiss and Esty and whoever's catching him in the ninth, whether it's Theis or Wallach, and figure out, hey man, what works best for you? Like, if I put my glove in the middle, does that help you? If I put it up high, does that help you? Listen to me. I should be the freaking pitching coach on this team. You and I should put our applications in for next year.
Well, you make a good point. And I know that the circumstances around the previous pitching coach, Mickey Callaway, were terrible. And so he needed to go. But one of the things that he brought to this team that I haven't seen from Matt Wise is that Mickey Callaway's philosophy was throw strikes, because the guy we had before him, Doug White, I believe was his name. They were so worried about rotation and revolution, and all that stuff, which I know is necessary, but that's where the shift came. It was like Callaway came in and said, I want these guys to throw strikes. I want them to hit the strike zone. And then he got fired for good reasons. And then Matt Wise was kind of just there. And it doesn't seem like he really has a philosophy, or if he adopted that philosophy, or maybe it's kind of morphed over time. But I think that idea of hey, throw strike, you're up 0-2, throw a strike. You don't have to get a swing and a miss. Throw a strike or throw it low, and then maybe the next pitch throw a strike. There's too many 0-2s to 3-2s. And I think what we saw with Giolito when he came over, I know he had struggled with a home run ball, but when he came over, it seemed like he just was kind of figuring some things out. But then last night, he looked like the guy that we'd hoped he would be. And it sounds like he and Theis were the ones that figured that out. Instead of having the strategy, he's like, here's where I'm good at. Here's what I'm good at. I'm going to do this.
Right. Mike, I think you just hit the nail on the head. And here's what I think it is. In the same way that they kept Phil Nevin on this year, I understand the circumstances around the fact that you don't want to hire a new manager and then new ownership comes in and cleans house. But Artie decided not to sell, so they rolled with Phil Nevin. And I think the same thing can be said about Matt Wise, in the sense that I think the direction comes from on high. It comes from the front office. And they're the ones trying to identify pitching strategy and pitching philosophy. So at the end of the day, I don't think Wise has a philosophy. I don't think he is a Mickey Callaway or Mickey Hatcher, right? I don't think he is those guys, or not Mickey Hatcher, Mike Butcher. I always mix them up. And so I don't think they have a strategy. And I think in the same way, that's kind of what it was with Phil Nevin was, hey, Phil, we're going to tell you what we would like you to do with your players. I think they brought in Marcus Timms because I don't think they knew how to communicate a hitting strategy. And so they let a guy come in and implement his philosophy. But I think that Matt Wise is yet just another voice for the front office to run the things that they want to practice and put and implement into the pitching philosophy.
Today's show is brought to you by Sleeper. Sleeper can help you swing for the fences. See what I did there? When you are playing fantasy baseball, you can win up to 100 times your money. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and decide if they're going to overperform or underperform on their stat categories like home runs and strikeouts and hits and more. And if you get your picks right, you could win big. And Sleeper works quickly too. The entries can be made in 30 seconds or less, and there's a safe and fast withdrawal on all payouts. So you can download the Sleeper app today. And when you do, use our promo code LOCKEDON at sign up, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Again, download the Sleeper app, use our promo code LOCKEDON, get a $100 match on your deposit. Check out Sleeper today.
Whatever they're saying on Ohtani, I'm taking the over. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm taking the over, Mike.
All right, Johnny, how about some hope? All right, we're the Super Halo brothers. We are always hopeful. Somebody was shocked on yesterday's show when we were like, I don't know if the Angels are going to make the playoffs. They're like, wow, things are bad if the Halo brothers don't think that.
Yeah,
so
no kidding.
Let me give you some hope. Saw this on Twitter. Appreciate all the conversation there. Let me run through this really quick. Let me tell you about the 2011 World Series champion St. Louis Cardinals. They were 10.5 games back in the wild card on August 27th. They had just come off a 2-4 road trip to Pittsburgh and Chicago. They came home and got swept by the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they had fallen to 10.5 back behind the Braves and behind some other teams in the standings. Manager Tony La Russa said that on these struggles, he said, I guarantee that the team that you've seen in the past few weeks is not the team that we have, and I believe you'll start seeing who our team is tomorrow. And then Chris Carpenter was on that team and some other veterans, and they actually called for a closed-door player-only team meeting, which was held after they were swept by the Dodgers. The odds of making the playoffs at this point, August 27th, for the St. Louis Cardinals was 1.3%.
Wow.
This team won the wild card and eventually won the World Series. They beat the Texas Rangers in the World Series, and they got to the wild card not because they won a whole bunch in a row. In fact, They had 2 4-game winning streaks and 1 5-game winning streak, John. The thing that was necessary, though, is they never lost more than 3 in a row after August 8th. Now, Angels are in a similar situation. 11.5 back in the AL West, 7 back in the wild card. We mentioned yesterday, not sure if they're going to be able to make it because it's just a big hill to climb. But, Johnny, the Cards are an example of that it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Is there too much hope there?
I mean, look, the Angels are just going to have to play flat out better baseball at this point. Last night was a great example of playing much better baseball.
Absolutely.
Because, again, they did the things that they should have been doing since the start of the season, Mike. Situational hitting, guys going the other way, shortening up, things like that, sacrifice flies, making contact, right? I go back to the idea that these guys just try to score runs in bunches. And that's great when you have a hitter, or that's great when you have a pitcher on the ropes and you're knocking them out of the game and you can stack up 4 or 5 runs. But until you get to that point of the game, you got to strategize and you have to be able to bring in 1 run in the first, 1 run in the third, 1 in the fourth. And then all of a sudden the 7th, that reliever comes in, you just stacked up 4 runs on this guy and now you're up 7 to whatever.
Add-on runs.
And I just think that if the Angels can play situational baseball like they did last night, if they can, get good starts out of their starters for once in their life. And I know Giolito had a great start.
Yeah.
I know Sandy on Monday had a great start, going 6 2/3 and 2 runs. I'll take that every day of the week. The offense on this team is still like a top 5 in OPS offense.
Right.
And that's without Trout. And that's without a month of Drury. Like, they're still hanging around there. And if these guys can put it all together and here's the thing, they have to get everything working at the same time. And I feel like since 2012, we've been talking about this year over year over year. When the pitching's good, the hitting sucks. And when the hitting is good, the pitching sucks. They never seem to sync up and do all things well. And to be fair, last night was an example when everything went right. And even though Giolito surrendered 3 earned runs, his team went out there and they picked him up. And he didn't give up the lead, but the team still picked him up by putting on 3 more runs to pad that lead for later on. So, yes, I think it's still a monumental task for this team to take 2 out of 3, basically, the rest of the way, or theoretically, right?
Right.
And at the same time, if they can play that kind of baseball and, I don't know, go to the tape and say, hey, remember that game on Tuesday, August 8th that we played against the Giants? Let's do more of that. What did we do well? Hey, let's do more of this, more of that. I mean, this should be a reference point for them at this point. The other thing I'll add, and this was pointed out in our YouTube comments yesterday, was that you and I talked about how great this team is on paper and how the coaching philosophy against the talent on paper hasn't really meshed. Well, we failed to mention that, there's 18 guys on the injured list right now, and we barely have the starting lineup we had at the beginning of the season. And we're getting some of those guys back. So I think the closer we can get to what we do well and continue to do what they did last night and add Trout and possibly Ohtani, and get Griffin Canning back in the rotation, I think there's a lot to be excited about and a lot to look forward to. Look, we're not going anywhere. You and I will be here every single day, whether they win or lose, and you can commiserate or we can celebrate. We'll do one of those 2 things. At the same time, we're going to be rooting that good things can happen. So hopefully the Angels can put it all together and make it happen in the next 2 months.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Giants at 6:38 tonight. Ohtani versus Ryan Walker. And you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Michael, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, Jonathan, we're going to talk about why the Angels can't stay healthy. We're going to talk about what that means and why they can't stay healthy and why they're paying a bunch of guys on the IL, because there's something going on and we need to figure that out, because if we're healthy, I think this team is really, really good. So we're going to talk about why they can't stay healthy tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
It's the curse.
Gotta be, right? Yeah, of the Black Pearl.
All right, friends, thanks for being here with us until tomorrow's show. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for joining us for Locked On Angels, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.